Hello, tribe. I'm back at answering all of your hashtag empath questions. So I got some really good questions from people on Instagram, and if you have any and you're tuning in live, please feel free to ask any other questions you might have. But I'm going to start with some of the questions that came from Instagram. So the first one says, help. My brother is a narcissist, and it's too hard for me to be around him now that I know. He's my only sibling and only family member aside from my parents. I love him, but it's hard. To the listener who asked this question, it can be really hard. It can be challenging, especially when you become aware of what a narcissist is, and also that narcissists can really feed off of empaths and take advantage of empaths. So what I would encourage you to do with your brother, who, yes, you love him, right? He's part of your family, but his energy is hard to be around. So when you are in a situation with him and you do choose to spend time with him, can you set strong energetic boundaries? Part of that is a little bit of a ritual before you go into the environment with him. So you can zip up your energy. And part of that is literally just taking your hands, like I have a zippy jacket on tonight, so that's perfect actually. It's like you're just zipping up your jacket. You can zip all the way up from about your pubic bone to your chin and zip up your energy before you're in an environment with him. I also love to use my oils. I love to do visualizations to ground and protect myself, and this is something that we will be diving into in great detail in Intuitive Soul School. One of the visualizations that I do a lot is I see an anchor, like this heavy weighted anchor connected to my sacrum. And just like when you're in a boat and you throw the anchor off the side of the boat to anchor the boat down, the weight of the boat stays there. I see this chain link anchor connected to my sacrum, and it's just going down into the layers, through the different layers of the earth into the molten core. And it plugs in the center, and it's like you're plugging yourself into an outlet to keep yourself protected and grounded so that you have an understanding and a sense when you are in the present moment of what is his energy and what is your energy, and what is his is not yours to carry, and what is yours is completely up to you and how you process that energy. Another way to go about this, because this can be a very challenging, there's an ambulance going by. This can be a really challenging situation, especially when it's a family member who's a narcissist. And something that I have learned to do is, with some of the challenging people in my life, I reframe the story. And I see how those people that are seemingly just challenging people are actually beautiful teachers. And this is something that can be really helpful to do with a coach, because oftentimes when I present that kind of question to people, it's really hard for them to think of how this person has actually helped them or taught them something or brought something to the surface for them, maybe even their own shadow that they needed to work on within themselves, but that person was a catalyst for it. So again, this is a big question. It can be a hard question, but I would look at your brother and say, okay, maybe he does have narcissistic behavior and is hard to be around, but what has he taught you? What has he brought to the surface within you that maybe you needed to confront, maybe you needed to bring to the surface, okay? So those are the grounding, the protection when you're in the situation, and then also just on your own, seeing how this person is actually helping you versus hurting you can be two different ways to deal with narcissists in your life. There are many more, and again, if you join Intuitive Soul School, we can dive into this in deeper detail. The next question is, what oils do you use to protect your energy? So I have a bajillion oils, and I have a few that are my favorite for protecting my energy. The first is Melaleuca, aka tea tree oil. And this is the oil of energetic boundaries, so it works really well to protect your energy. It also, on a physiological level, is the oil that is antibacterial, antifungal, antimicrobial. So it's like this protection on a physical level. So if you have like a cut or something, or you don't want something to get infected, you can put it on your skin. But then it also has that same properties energetically. So when you don't want to be infected by somebody else's energy or the people around you, same type of idea. This is a beautiful oil to use for those energetic boundaries, kind of putting up this shield to any negative energy so that it bounces off. The next one that I like to use for protecting my energy is On Guard essential oil. This is a blend from doTERRA. It's a beautiful blend, smells delicious, kind of reminds me of Christmas, and it's the protective blend. So it's in the name there as well. Protective blend, protects your energy, also protects you from different pathogens and things like that. But I like to think of it as kind of like an energy vampire energy vampire shield, so that those negative energies that you may encounter, will likely encounter at some point in your life, think of them more as like just bouncing off of you, like #can't touch this. The next oil I like to use for protecting your energy is Balance. Balance is also a blend from doTERRA. It is my favorite oil. Declaring that right now. It is my favorite oil. It's the grounding blend, and it is so important as an empath or as a highly sensitive person to ground yourself. If you have never grounded your energy, you don't know what it feels like to be grounded. Oh, lost you guys for a second. I was saying Balance is my favorite. If you are an empath and you have never done grounding exercises or practiced grounding energy, it could be life-changing for you. Even the simple grounding exercises can completely change your relationship to energy around you and the way that you show up in the world. So Balance is a beautiful blend, grounding blend, has some grounding oils in it. One of my favorite oils in it, blue tansy as well, which makes it a little bit of a blue color. And then my fourth oil I like to use to protect my energy is clove. And this oil is also really good for oral health, and has been used for centuries, really, to ward off different. It was used in like the plague, and used to ward off different pathogens. And I like to think of it kind of as this like concoction for the negative energy, or like an antidote to it. So I really like clove as well. And that one also smells good. Next question I read and I was like, this doesn't have anything to do with being an empath. And then I read it again and I was like, you know what? It actually does. So the question is, do you add bone broth to your coffee or shakes, and what brand do you use? And yes, I do add bone broth to my smoothies, and I sometimes will just make a drink with it. I don't drink coffee, so no to that, but you could. And I use the Dr. Axe bone broth, and I don't use the protein meal one. I just use the pure bone broth one. It's the vanilla flavor. It's sweetened with monk fruit, which you guys know I like. And I use that in my smoothies. So I'll do like a really low sugar smoothie with mostly like avocado, blueberry, coconut milk, and a scoop of this bone broth protein, which is delicious. But it's also really good by itself. So I add coconut milk. So I will heat up some coconut milk and then blend the protein, that vanilla collagen protein, my words, sorry, blend those together, and it becomes like frothy, and it tastes like a bone broth latte. It's so good, you guys. So the answer is yes, and that I do the ancient, Ancient Nutrition by Dr. Axe. But bringing it back to empath, nutrition is actually a huge part of becoming an empowered empath. So if you are not taking care of your body and you are not getting nutrients, and you are maybe nutrient deficient, or not getting enough protein, or you are not consciously like aware of food. It's kind of like you eat in this zombie state. That can affect your energy in a bajillion ways, okay? So our body, first of all, our immune system is a nutrient hog, and that's important to all of us with autoimmunity or chronic illness. And so when we have enough nutrients in the body can operate more effectively and efficiently. And we can also eat intuitively. So when you are going to sit down, like, are you scarfing your food or are you eating mindfully? And then when you choose your food, are you choosing whatever's left in the fridge? Or are you thinking about, maybe you're planning your meals that week, but then each day you kind of pick a meal from that list that actually sounds good to you. And when you start to listen to the body and you have this relationship with the body, you are communicating with it. You're listening to those signals, those messages that are your intuition. And it's just your intuition coming forth. And so I actually love this question because it's also part of grounding us in our root chakra, and our basic needs is food and nutrition. So thank you for asking that. It's a huge part of being an empowered empath. Next question is, doTERRA convention is next week. Yes, it is. And it's actually this week now. This question was from a couple days ago, but it starts on Wednesday night and I will be there. So if anyone else is at doTERRA convention, please come find me. I don't know where I'll be yet. You can always DM me on Instagram if you want to bump into each other. But the question is, how do I survive sharing a room with complete strangers? And this is the question I was asking last year, and I was really nervous, honestly. I went to a convention last year for the first time, and you guys, I think there was 30,000 people there. That's a shit ton of people. And this is, little Sarah Small, who doesn't like to be in groups of more than like five people. And I was really nervous, but I also knew I had a ton of tools in my toolbox. So I went and I brought all those tools and knew I had those tools within me. And I actually ended up having a really amazing freaking time, and brought out a lot of those tools to kind of get through and experience these 3-4 days in a fully present way without having to worry about being an empath and all the anxiety that would potentially pop up. So how did I do that? Number one, there is a ton of opportunity to party at convention, really honest there. You could stay out as late as you want and you can party because there's a bunch of parties going down. But I went to like street party for a little while and then I came home. And what was really important for me over those couple days was to rest and to not stay out late, because I know that if I don't get adequate sleep, that's going to trigger me into being extra sensitive the next day. So I was just really mindful of taking rest and also taking breaks. So sitting in a chair for like 8 hours a day, that's a lot, right? And they're pretty good about like stand up, and like the beautiful part is you can walk out anytime. So I would walk out and I'd go and I get did big breath of fresh air. There's also just like tons of booths and vendors all around. So I took my time to just go through those when I was feeling a little bit like my energy needed to move versus sitting. So take breaks, bring your oils, right? Go bring all those oils I just mentioned. Plus there's opportunity to buy a bunch of new oils there, but bring your foundational oils that you go to and are going to help protect your energy and ground you and center you and help with some of those anxious feelings if you get them. And then I also like to start the day with just like clarity. So after, day one, you've been around 30,000 people, go get your sleep. And then in the morning, take 5 minutes to just do a short meditation. So I think of meditation as this really beautiful time to clarify what you've carried and picked up on over the last 24 hours, and then you can let that go, versus what is actually yours, and finding just some grounding energy around yourself and letting go of all this anxiety that you potentially have picked up. So start with the morning in some silence. And then there's a good grocery store there that I can't remember, but it's really close to the convention center, and Harmon's, I think is what it's called. Anyone live in Salt Lake City, that's where we'll be. So I think it's called Harmon's, and I went there every morning just so that I was eating foods that also supported me and I knew I wasn't going to have like a reaction to. Next question. When in group situations, how do you tell which feelings are yours and which are others? So meditate is actually what I was just saying is after especially being around a ton of people, I like to meditate and to just, it's like you're clearing the clutter of your mind. You're letting go of all of that clutter that's accumulated and getting clear again. So that it's clear to you. You have this clear knowing and this intuitive ability to define, okay, this is Sarah's feelings versus that was all the energy that I was just in. So meditation definitely helps define what is yours, what is not yours. This also takes practice. It becomes a lot easier with time. And that's what we'll be doing in Intuitive Soul School is practicing in small groups within the larger group. You'll be divided into small groups where we get to practice reading energy. And part of that is also letting go of your own story when you read other people's energy. And so you can just read their energy without bias, and then tuning into your own energy. And then it becomes easier to define. That's Sally's pissed off. I'm not pissed off. That was just Sally. Right? And then just knowing yourself, that's a huge part of this. And the more we know ourselves, the easier it is to define, okay, yep, that's me, that's part of me, that's my energy, that's my emotion, that's my shadow, that's my light, versus that is not mine. And we get to know ourselves better by self-development, personal development. Taking the time to do the damn thing, do the work. And it doesn't have to be hard. It can be really, really joyful, but it's also not always easy. But investing in yourself and taking the time to get to know yourself and understand your intuitive abilities, that to me is priceless. It's something that you can use in every single aspect of your life. So it's so worth it to take that time. Next question, how can I help others understand, like my spouse or family, me being an empath? So I can see where this would be challenging, right? And I think that everyone probably will go about this in a different way, in the way that you feel most comfortable. But here are some suggestions. So you might have them listen to my podcast. The first couple episodes are about being an empath and my personal story. And sometimes, even if it's not your story, just having someone in your life listen to somebody else's story of being an empath helps them understand. And it's like, you're pointing them in that direction. You're saying, hey, listen to this. I feel a lot of these things too. Maybe if you listened to her talk, you might understand the way I feel. So that's an option. There's also tons of, blogs and articles published online too that might be a good link to forward to someone you love that you want this person to understand you and being an empath better. And let them know that it's important to you that they read this. Not just, hey, I think you'd like this. It's like, hey, I really want you to understand some of the things I'm going through. It would mean a lot to me if you took 5 to 10 minutes to read this, and then maybe we could talk about it afterwards. And so you might feel comfortable asking someone to do that, and you might not. So that's why there's different ways to go about this. But I think that could also really help shed some light on what an empath is if you just share resources with them. And there's resources in many different platforms that you can share. It can be hard for people to understand if they are not tapped into their own empathic abilities, but you can always simplify it. So you don't have to dive in to every single thing you felt as an empath and all of your empathic abilities right away. You could simply just define kind of what that means to you. What does that feel in your body? So you might say, hey, Joe, I take on other people's energy as my own. I learned that it's called being an empath, and I felt it my whole life, and it's been a crazy feeling to start to be able to navigate. But now I have a name for it, and I realized that it's just simply taking on other people's energy as my own. So maybe Joey's your husband, and you might say, so when our kids are hurting, I feel their pain. Or when I see violence on the news, it's like it's happening inside our house. And it becomes really overwhelming for me. And now that I know that it's called being an empath, I'm starting to learn more about it so it doesn't affect me so much. But you're just opening up this dialogue because maybe they feel the same way too and they just didn't know it had a name. And maybe they don't, but it will help them understand you better. So I would start with the simple kind of definition of being an empath, and also explain why is it important to you, why do you want them to know this and understand this, and then maybe how can they support you, how can they help you through that process. Or maybe they'll ask, hey, what can I do for you? Maybe there's nothing that you want them to do except for just listen, right? So those are all of your questions from Instagram story on just empath questions in general. Do you guys have any other questions for me tonight? Looks like a few of you guys are on live still. Hope you guys had a good Sunday. I had a really good weekend and I'm excited to go to convention. So I leave on Wednesday. I'll be in Salt Lake City with 30,000, maybe more this year. Maybe it's 40,000 this year. I don't know. People, but there's really good energy there. So I'm excited to go see my doTERRA girls and hang out, learn all about the new oils and all the projects that doTERRA is up to all over the freaking world. It's super cool. All right, no more questions. Just a reminder, you have 3 more days now to join Intuitive Soul School. It's a $144 investment, and we have 5 weeks, 5 modules, 5 practice sessions, a community of support that is safe, that is protected, that is sacred for you to tap into your intuition, unlock these abilities that are already there, and we'll discover what your strongest clairs are, which clairs you want to awaken and come into stronger. And it's gonna just be an amazing group. It's already half full, just a couple more days left to join us. Start September 23rd. And I'm freaking excited. Last time this was so much fun, and I know this group's gonna be just as much fun. So I'd love to see you in that community. I'll pop the link below. You guys have a great rest of your weekend. Love you.